And welcome to The Bottom Line, where we break down some of the main business and economic stories of the day. Every year seems to fly by faster, and we are close to wrapping up 2024. As we head into December, we begin to form an idea of what kind of year it's been for Poland and what kind of challenges and priorities lie ahead for the government and for the regular consumer. I'm joined now by Ignacy Morawski, Chief Economist from Puls Biznesu, to tell us more. Hello, and thank you for joining us in the studio.
Hello, good afternoon.
So we got our inflation results today, and they were lower than expected for November. We're at 4.6% year on year. It's gone down a little bit, and we hear that it's pretty much certain to go back up to 5% by the end of the year. However, as we heard in our report, Rafał Benecki from ING says that it was a little bit of a fluke. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, what is important is a trend, not volatility from month to month, not the difference of the size of 1/10 of percentage point, but the trend. And the trend is quite stable. We have an inflation at around 4.5%, 5%. And this is high. It's definitely high. It's much higher than the central bank target, which is 2.5%. However, we have to be aware of the fact that much of this inflation is caused by increase in administrative prices, right? And this is the late effect of the wave of inflation from the previous years. So the government froze energy prices in 2022 and 2023. And thanks to that, the inflation wave was lower than it would have been otherwise. But now we have a gradual unfreeze of those prices, and it causes inflation rate to be higher than normal. I would expect that once those effects of unfreezing of energy prices fizzle out, inflation will normalize at around 2–3%.
So it's a bit of an aftershock that we're paying for.
I think we are experiencing aftershocks. It's like after an earthquake, you have following aftershocks, and it's the same with inflation shock.
So 5% is absolutely certain by the end of the year, and 6% in spring?
We have, only 1 month left. So I suppose that we will experience an inflation at around 5% in December probably, and a bit higher than 5% at the beginning of next year. But the key question is whether the inflation will start going down from the middle of the next year. Mm-hmm. So that will determine the decisions of the central bank. At this moment, I think we can expect that the inflation will start coming down from the middle of the next year, and central bank, seeing this path in its forecasts, will start cutting rates in March.
Okay, and on to some positive news from earlier in the week. We saw positive industrial production results, 4.7%, retail sale results as well. As we've said, perhaps the economy is not in for a U-turn boom, but are we looking at some tangible, steady, positive improvements?
Well, it depends on where you look on this data from. The dynamics of production in Poland is positive. It's above zero. And this is good, because on average in European Union it is negative at around, as I remember, 2 to 3% negative rate of growth. So actually a decline in production. So if we see positive dynamics in Poland, it clearly indicates that Poland continues to expand its share in European industry market. So that's positive side. On the other hand, the dynamics of production, if we look at the trend, is still low. It is true that in October, sorry, because we're talking about October data, the industrial production increased substantially. But I think the same as with inflation, we should look at trend. So smooth dynamics. We should take the average of October, September, August, July, etc. So if we look at smooth data, the trend, it is at around 1% year on year, right? So good October came after rather mediocre September and August. So in the end, I think that the average rate of growth of industrial production in Poland is below potential. It is lower than expected by companies, and therefore the mood in industry in Poland is rather negative.
Okay.
So companies do not generally assess the current environment as very positive. So there are positives and negatives. It depends how you look at the phenomenon.
So it's a bit naive to be overjoyed by this week's macro results.
As usually, you know, one should never look at or pay too much attention to monthly data. Only take some averages from a couple of months, from a couple of indicators. So in general, I think economy is growing, but growing below potential.
Okay. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about the EU-Mercosur trade deal. A couple of questions. How likely, according to you, do you think the deal actually will be ratified before the end of the year? What kind of changes do you think the deal needs to have made for it to be ratified, and what kind of impact do you think it will have on the agriculture industry, especially in Poland?
Well, at this moment it seems that Poland will not be able to form a blocking minority, right? So European Union will take the decision, and we are against the Mercosur deal. France is against, but it seems, at least from what I read, is that we are not able to form a blocking minority. So the deal will go forward. Poland is against the deal for the obvious reason. Poland is the third largest exporter of poultry meat in the world, third largest. Brazil is the second largest. So Poland is the leader in terms of supplies of poultry meat, right, chicken meat, on the European markets. And Brazil may increase its share. So it is certainly a competitive threat to Polish producers. And that's why Poland is against. And the same reason with France, right? Maybe they are concerned with different kind of products, but still agricultural sector is in the center of concerns. But in the end, I think that, you know, Poland gained a lot from free trade. We benefited from free trade, and we should be, in the long term, in general, supporters of free trade agreements. I think that's the interest of the Polish economy, that's the interest of Poland in general. So I suppose that the Polish government is aware of the fact that its negative opinion will not influence the general attitude of Europe towards free trade.
But how do you view the Polish farmers and their concerns? Do you think that they're exaggerated?
No, they're not exaggerated. From the point of view of producers of certain products, Mercosur deal is certainly a threat, right? But we have to remember that Poland is a huge exporter of agri-food products, so agriculture and processed food, and we have a large trade surplus, right? So we benefit from open trade, certainly, from the open trade environment. And in the short term, Mercosur deal is a threat to certain agricultural producers, and I understand them. But on the other hand, in the long term, we benefit from free trade, and our interest is to live in the world without trade wars. So I would, I would probably try to find some middle way. Maybe it will be possible to make some minor adjustments to the deal. I'm not sure. I'm not an expert on this deal. But in general, it seems that Mercosur will go forward.
Okay. And just as we wrap up, we know that Poland's upcoming presidency in the EU comes at a time when there is combined pressure to implement the most important aspects of Mario Draghi's report on European competitiveness. And obviously, this puts a spotlight on Poland. What do you think Poland can do to implement the most important aspects of that?
Well, it seems to me that the key point that Polish government is raising at the moment is slowing down of the Green Deal, right? So this is the point of common interest between Poland and the Draghi report. So what Mario Draghi wrote in his famous report is that Europe has competitiveness problems, and one of the reasons is that we have too high energy prices. And one of the reasons that why Europe has high energy prices is a very fast energy transformation. So there is a suggestion in this report that maybe we should make some adjustments to the Green Deal, and Polish government is proposing, for example, to slow down the implementation of ETS2 regulations, right? So the trading system of rights to carbon emissions. So And certainly as an economy very dependent on fossil fuels, it is in our interest to slow down a bit the whole enterprise of the Green Deal.
Okay, Ignacy Morawski, thanks so much for joining us again.
Thank you.
And that was Ignacy Morawski joining us again in the studio today, Chief Economist from Puls Biznesu. And I was your host, Marie Cato. Make sure you join us every weekday at 5 p.m. CET. And now coming up will be World Talks. Thank you. Goodbye.